Thank you for joining the podcast today. It's going to be an uplifting conversation about understanding how your thoughts work, and this is going to allow you to make shifts and open yourself up to unlimited possibilities. Often, though, this process begins from a dark and desperate place, and it's not something to do alone. If you or someone you know is struggling or in crisis, help is available. Please call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org. I'm your host, Megan Babcock, and the founder of It's Your Story to Tell and the Coach Collective, and I'm thrilled to have Teresa Walding with me today. When we both jumped on here, I knew it was going to be a great day because look at the alignment. We both have the same color shirt and lipstick. That was totally unplanned. So I'm really excited about even just the alignment in how we showed up today. So we met through our involvement with the American Holistic Nurses Association. And when I first connected with Teresa, I was really drawn to her approach to coaching. She's a seasoned healthcare professional, and she has a really diverse clinical background across many different specialties. And her insights have been featured in publications such as the Beginnings magazine of the American Holistic Nurses Association and the Texas Nurse magazine. And she's currently serving as the Associate Director of the Advancing Nurse Coaching Program. And her mission is to empower nurses and healthcare professionals to apply the principles we're going to talk about today in their work so that they can foster enhanced health, healing, and overall well-being. I am really looking forward to our discussion today and what you're going to share about these essential elements and how they underpin human psychology and inform health and well-being. And so without further ado, Teresa, I'm so excited that you're going to be here for 2 episodes. So we're going to jump in with our first episode here, and you're going to talk a little bit about your journey and how you even came to these principles. And then listeners, you want to come back because you're going to find out in episode 2 about how to put these practices into your life and unlock unlimitless potential. So Teresa, thank you so much for being willing to come on and share your story with us. And I'm just going to let you take it over here and tell us about how you got to where you are today.
Wow. Thank you, Megan. It's really, really a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited to get to connect with other nurse coaches and people who are out here trying to change the world. And in the end, it takes all of us.
Absolutely.
So that's where we're at. We are gaining momentum as nurses, as coaches, as problem solvers. And I really, really want everyone on the journey that wants to be here. So I found the principles in 2015. For those of you who don't know, I guess I should back up a little bit and tell you a little bit about my background just for a second.
Absolutely.
So I've been a registered nurse since 1993. My background is ICU. I opened a geriatric psych unit, which we took patients over 65. That was quite interesting. I also have worked pediatric home health, and I spent many years in post-anesthesia recovery while I was doing a lot of other things, to include becoming a nurse coach and working in my community, doing a lot of volunteer missions with people trying to raise the awareness for health and wellness. So wherever I could get in, that's where I go. And so that's been my journey. So back to learning about principles behind our psychology. I had been looking for several years to find a way to connect nurses and patients to their own health and well-being. I wrote a goal in 2003 maybe, that I wanted to find something that would help people in the middle of the night when no one was around. Mm-hmm. Because when do people come to the ER? 3 o'clock in the morning when they've exhausted everything they know. And most of it was the fear of the unknown, of not really trusting their intuition or, staying home too long or coming in for no reason. Both of those were always present. Mm-hmm. And as we were thinking about it, my partner and I'm, Lynn McCray, wanted to develop a holistic practice where we could bring in practitioners to meet these multidimensional needs. And then we realized that we weren't really an expert in any of them. So we went, oh, okay. And she looked at me one day and she said, I really want to bring the 3 principles to nursing. And I was like, so what are the 3 principles? And she said, I can't teach it to you. She goes, let me think about it. And I was like, what do you mean? My little pea brain went, you can't teach it to me? I went to nursing school. I know how to study. I can learn, right? And she kind of left it there. And so about 6 months later, October of 2015, we, American Holistic Nurses Austin area chapter, we do a retreat or a conference almost every year. And except for during the pandemic, we're getting ready to do another one in November of this year, 2024. But we had a speaker. His name is Dr. Keith Blevins, and he came to present to us one day about the principles. And the way he taught it was wonderful for me. I'd been doing a lot of research and courses and learning about all of the biohacking and, all the things that we try to do to help ourselves. But he talked about how the mind worked. At that particular time, I was struggling a lot at work. I had had chronic pain for about 5 years. I was really seriously considering stopping nursing because it was just physically exhausting. I was like, and I wasn't that old. I was like, and I thought, I just can't do it anymore. And, we were having some family struggles and, nothing out of the ordinary that other people don't deal with. But when it's your family, it's different. Right? It's your patient. It's one thing. We can be optimistic and we can do all those things. But when it's us, it's different. It's like we're the one making decisions and in control of what's happening. And he started talking about thinking in ways that actually aren't true. He calls it flat earth thinking or obsolete thinking. One example he often gave was way back when they thought the earth was flat, they had a bunch of anchors on these boats, giant anchors, so that when they got to the edge of the world and were going to fall off, they could drop anchors and wouldn't go anywhere.
Wow.
Well, when they found out the world was round, guess what? We didn't need that anymore. So that's where he was coming from. And when he got to the one implication that he talks about called separate realities, I had the insight and realization that I had been thinking that things in my life were working in a certain way that they had never worked. And I went, it can't be that easy. It cannot be as easy as recognizing I don't have control of another person. I knew that intellectually. I knew that. Mm-hmm. It was a whole different thing to realize on that deep personal level that I was making up a lot of stories about what these problems in my life meant. And I suddenly said, oh, and I just let it go. It was a physiological feeling through my body, and the pain disappeared. Wow. When we say we have the weight of the world on our shoulders, we feel it physiologically. We actually suffer with the feeling of our thinking because we don't know what else to do.
I really love what you're sharing there about what you experienced in that moment, because it's very familiar to me when it came to my own story and my journey, and how I realized I had these false beliefs that had been implanted, that then I created these entire narratives that I, from childhood into my mid-30s, were impacting my life so profoundly. And how quickly life began to change when I was able to recognize, like, that was a belief that was put in my mind. It's not something that I actually really identify with, and I am going to let that go. And it began to transform my life so quickly. And I had spent a lot of years in counseling and all of this work, and I never really got to feel that relief or even see my life go in a different direction, even though I was working really hard to take it in a different direction. And so I think it's so powerful when you can step back for a moment and look at it and say, is that servicing me? Is that true? Because it may be as simple as, no, it's not. And have that relief and that release. So thank you for sharing that. So you experienced that in this conference. Would you say that really started a transformation in your life? Is that what led you to deciding, were you already coaching at that point? No. Okay.
No, it was like the day that happened at 9:31 in the morning. Like you mark the day when something profound happens to you, you just know, right? Mm-hmm. And I went, oh my goodness, this is it. This is my goal coming to life. This is the one thing that I know can help people at 3:00 in the morning when no one's around, because it helps us to calm our thinking down. It helps us to know where we're coming from. You know, like you were just talking about, realizing thoughts that aren't telling you the truth, and how fast you can heal from that. Yeah. It was instantaneous. It was like the second I heard and I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that what was being said was true, because we have that internal truth meter. Mm-hmm. We feel it in our bodies. And I thought, that's the work I'm doing for the rest of my life, because there's no end to it. And the amount of people that can be helped by that simple recognition seems to be one of the hardest things for us to do, right? we're very caught up. Yeah.
It is so profound and so simple at the same time. And I think sometimes that's why it's hard to accept that potentially that could help you, because you're like, no way. Like, I spent all these years in counseling. How is this one change, this shift in my mindset, how is that going to have this major impact in my life? Because, you know, the saying goes, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. So we've been programmed with this narrative to look at things and, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, be very cautious and to really evaluate and not just trust things immediately. Mm-hmm. And that inability to trust, for me, really was my inability to trust my intuition, to trust that I did have the answer. And so I continued to look externally in all of these places for that answer. And quite frankly, it was exhausting, overwhelming, creating anxiety. And when I was able to go back and learn to trust, you talked about the truth meter that's inside of us. I'd love for you to share a little bit more on that, because I think that in our world, we've kind of gotten away from being able to trust ourselves or trust people, because there's a lot of things that have happened that would say that, you know, that you shouldn't. So how, if someone's not trusting themselves, and this is such a key part, is tuning into your own intuition, how do you help someone start with that?
Well, you know, it's been 8 years in the making, but I've been coaching since 2016. Right after that experience, I was like, nurse coaching's it. I'm going to become a nurse coach, and I'm going to teach this to people. And some people would say that you can't teach someone to listen to that, their intuition on that level. And I disagree. We are brilliant human beings, and we all have this innate health and wisdom built into us. We've just forgotten how to listen. And so in 2016, we opened our school, and the only thing that we teach is this.
Wow.
Because I realized after many, many years of trying every modality you can imagine, and truly getting some results. I'm not saying that it wasn't helpful, but it wasn't lasting. And now I know why, because I was looking somewhere else for my truth. Right. I didn't have that knowing within me, like, oh, okay. They were pointing to it. Many people point to, that inner wisdom. It comes from within. And in my view, this was the shortcut. It was like, as soon as I heard the truth of how thinking works, not from my belief, but that the fact that it's just a one-way system or a single paradigm. We have many paradigms that we live in. People have things that they believe to be true, and they live from that perspective for their whole life. We all do it. Whatever culture we were raised in, religion we were raised in, how we learned how to do nursing, how we learned how to do a job. We have all of these, like, those are our truths. But then there's the truth, that we actually live in a thought-created world of our own making. Everything that we see in the world is interpreted through our personal thought bridge that is always connected to the source energy. Some people call that God. And that's who we really are. And we're always connected. So helping people uncover that piece for themselves, I don't want you to believe me. I want you to experience it for yourself. That maybe you could even try a little thought experiment. When you look at someone else, notice what you're thinking about someone. Or notice what you're thinking about this conversation. And then know that whatever you think is your truth. So when you're doing that all day long, you're always the creator of your experience. Well, for me, prior to understanding this thought reality piece, I thought I could help my family by worrying about them, or trying to fix their problems, or giving advice, or trying to show a better way. The problem was I didn't have the answers. They had their own answer.
Right. I think this is, it's as, even as you're saying it, as nurses, that is something we kind of just naturally do in our work as well. And I think maybe that was my draw to that profession. But I think how much more successful would I have been if I realized I'm not the expert. I'm a guide, and I need to help them find their truth in this situation. Because I could sit there. I was also a critical care nurse, and I worked with patients who had open heart surgery. And so when they're recovering and we're doing all their education and we're trying to help them to learn to change their behaviors and eat different, exercise, all of those things, we're just, at least me, I was just telling them, like, these are all of the reasons why you need to do it. But I wasn't really digging into understanding why they may have gotten there in the first place. And when I became a nurse coach, that was such a profound shift, because I thought, okay, as a nurse coach, I'm just going to be there to coach people on improving their health. And what I realized in my first few clients was that while they may be coming to me for help with their blood pressure or their weight loss goals or anything like that, most of the time, it wasn't for a lack of knowledge that they were in the place they wanted and they had different goals. It was, there was something deeper, way deeper, a root cause that was preventing them from being able to align with their desired outcome. Because they desired it, they had the desire. They knew that there were things that they needed to do, but it didn't stick long term, like you were saying. So, you lower the blood pressure, you reduce the weight for a period of time, but it doesn't become a lifestyle because you never got to the root of it. And I feel like that is what you're saying, is that when you can identify what is the truth that you're believing. Because I can remember very clearly one client when she had the breakthrough that eating was tied to a very unhealthy relationship with her mom. And it was when she could reconcile the way that her mom treated her wasn't something she deserved, and that she could release that and then choose the life that she wanted instead of sabotaging herself as a control thing with what happened with her mom, that it wasn't so hard to achieve her other goals because she was no longer dealing with that thing from the past that was dictating, like you said, those thoughts were then becoming her reality. And so when the thoughts changed, the behavior was able to easily change, and there was freedom. That's where freedom comes. And so you have 3 principles, is that right? So we're talking about this overall kind of mind shift, understanding that our thoughts become our reality. What are the 3 principles? And then we'll, in the next episode, really get into how to make those part of your daily life. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome.
So the 3 principles, we have names for them. Know that they're a metaphor. Mind, consciousness, and thought. Mind is all knowledge of why we're here. It's mind that created the universe. Access to anything that's in the world, it comes through mind. Consciousness is our awareness, which includes our senses. It includes our ability to have the interoception, or the sensations within our body, but also to have sensory of our environment. It's how we actually are aware that we're alive. So with consciousness, we're aware that we think, and we can actually observe our own thinking. And then thought, and all of these principles are neutral. They're not, they don't tell us what to think. They don't tell us what to do. They're just there. And but with thought is actually within our control. We are thinking human beings. But the power of thought as a neutral principle says that whatever we think comes to life in our world. So it doesn't care what it thinks. It can be good or bad. It can be anything that you can imagine that you can think, you can do. And often thought just comes across like a ticker tape. It just goes right across here. We could think what feels like a million thoughts all at once, but none of those thoughts come to life until we put our attention on the ones that are important to us. And that's why we can have thoughts that we're like, oh, it's a good thing nobody's in here to know that I'm thinking about this, and it's healthy to recognize, oh, that's not, we're not doing that. But it's also learning to pay attention to the thinking that's beneficial to us, or to be open to have new thinking and new awareness, or an insight into something in your life that is deeply meaningful and powerful, like you were just talking about, a realization of your client who didn't know that something from her past was actually informing her present. And we have lots of those things. They're learned behaviors that don't look like thought, but it got there somehow from our own thinking and agreements that we've made for ourselves. So that's mind, consciousness, and thought.
I think, you bring such a good point about our awareness, because you can't change the things you're not aware of. So when you are just going through life and not really taking notice of your thoughts, then your subconscious is driving everything you do.
Yeah.
But it's that becoming aware, recognizing, and then I love the part about giving attention. Like, things don't change until you start giving attention to that. And that was so true for me. That's what I see with my clients, where, okay, I teach, it's almost like similar to yours. This is what I loved when we were talking, but about taking your thought captive and then kind of evaluating, is it something that is serving you? Does it, for me, I had I believe in God as my higher power. And for me, it was looking at the fruits of the Spirit and saying, do these thoughts measure up with what I believe? And I found, wow, I have so many thoughts that I didn't realize were not in aligned with what I really wanted in life. And so when I could start filtering through them and saying, no, I'm not going to choose to focus on that thought, but I'm actually going to replace it with a thought that is in alignment with me. And it was so amazing how fast things in my life, once I had identified something that was a false belief and creating this false narrative, and then this whole taking my thoughts captive and becoming aware, so moving out of my subconscious to consciousness, you're right. The ability to do things is limitless.
Yeah.
So let's end here. Okay. And I hope everyone will come back and join us for our next session, because that is where you're going to help us learn to integrate this into our life and how self-care is such an important aspect of that. But for those listening, tell them how they can connect with you. Are you on social media? What's your website? We'll also put these in the show notes to make it easy, but for those listening.
Yeah, I'd love for you to connect with us at nursecoaching.com, 2 words, nursecoaching.com. And you can come and send us a message through the footer form and check out the website. And we always respond to the messages that come through there.
Amazing.
So that's easy.
Well, when you have nursecoaching.com as your URL, you were like the first. Because that's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing your expertise and just your journey to understanding this and uncovering this for yourself, and then how you now help others become the expert of their life. I look forward to continuing this conversation with you in next episode. So come back and join us, everyone.
Thank you so much.